Well, it is time now to get the latest stories which have been generating lots of headlines in the press. It's time for Media Watch, and I'm joined in the studio by James Creedon. Good evening to you, James. Now, let's look at the stories which have been big in France, in the French press.
Yes. All right, well, the first story that we'll have a look at today is in the Nouvel Observateur, weekly magazine online as well. Dominique Strauss-Kahn. Every day there's a new twist or turn in this story. Yesterday we were looking at how the mother of Tristan Banon, she is the young woman who is taking a case against Dominique Strauss-Kahn in France for attempted rape. Now, her mother told the police and also L'Express magazine that apparently she once slept with Dominique Strauss-Kahn. So that was another kind of twist in this story. Now, today we're learning that the second wife of Dominique Strauss-Kahn, she is his ex-wife now.
His ex-wife, yeah, he doesn't have many wives.
So his current wife is his third wife. Brigitte Guillemette was the second, and she was apparently, according to Tristan Banon's mother, very friendly with Tristan Banon's mother. So the mother of the woman who is taking this case was very friendly, according to her, with Dominique Strauss-Kahn's second wife, Brigitte Guillemette. Now, Brigitte Guillemette denies this, and she's spoken to the Nouvel Observateur. She is suing Anne Mansuret for slander. Anne Mansuret, I remind viewers, is the mother of Tristan Banon.
You need a chart. But you have to contact. We do need some kind of graphic here,
exactly.
Some flowchart.
So the mother of the woman pressing charges for attempted rape says she was a great friend of Dominique Strauss-Kahn's second wife, that she had called her after the alleged incident back in 2003, that Brigitte Guillemette responded by saying he's been a bit strange around students before, but never anything, I've never heard of anything of this level of seriousness, and that they had this big long conversation. Reminding viewers too that Tristan Banon was supposedly friendly with the daughter of Dominique Strauss-Kahn by the second marriage,
Camille.
As I say, you'd almost need a chart. Now, anyway, Guillemette is saying that nothing that Anne Mansuret says is true. I'm going to sue her for slander. I am not a close friend. My daughter Camille was never a friend of Tristan Banon's. She says that the two met 2 or 3 times max, and that basically were caught up in a disgusting and unhealthy fable, which it is time to stop.
So she's very much, we can say, distancing herself from these claims there.
Absolutely. And just one more detail in the whole Dominique Strauss-Kahn story. The hotel maid, apparently it would be possible for her to press charges against Dominique Strauss-Kahn in France, in a Paris court. Now, that is only if the proceedings in New York don't come to a conclusion, i.e. if Dominique Strauss-Kahn is convicted or cleared in the New York case, then that case, an equivalent case, couldn't be brought against him in the French courts. But it is not beyond the bounds of possibility that the case, she could take a case in France. So another bizarre piece of information.
I expect to see you back tomorrow with your flowchart of the Dominique Strauss-Kahn case to explain
I think we definitely need a graphic.
Meanwhile, onto French politics, and the Socialists now published their final list of candidates to go ahead for the presidential election next year.
That's right. It's been going on for months and months in France. The primaries process, how they're going to pick their candidate. Dominique Strauss-Kahn was the favourite. We saw what happened there. He's not on this final list. So you've got François Hollande, Martine Aubry and several others. Now, what the focus is on at the moment is debates, televised debates between the candidates for the Socialist Party ticket. Now, Martine Aubry apparently is not really in favour of them, and one of the reasons why is that the French Audiovisual Authority basically says that if you're having televised debates for the Socialist Party, that should be deducted from the time that they're allocated for debates with other parties. So, for example, the Sarkozy's political party, the Greens, the Socialists, they're going to be allocated TV time. So if the Socialists start using up time debating each other, that should be just subtracted from whatever debate time they should have later.
Taken away from their television campaigning
so,
time, right.
The details, they're still debating the details and trying to find out how they are finally going to select this famous candidate who is not Strauss-Kahn.
We know that now. I'm sure we haven't heard the last of this by any means. Love a good political debate here in France, don't we? So that's
another year of it to come.
Set to continue very much. So, what's next for us?
All right, well, we'll have a look at a businessman very well known in France. He's actually owns an awful lot of media companies, Arnaud Lagardère. Anyone who knows France knows this name. Now, a video is going viral online, a video showing a photo shoot that was taken of him and his 21-year-old lover. Now, our Lagardère is 50 plus, so looking pretty well for 50, but there is a bit of an age gap. In any case, so he
very happy together.
Libération describes it as, it looks like it's being taken on the set of an unimaginative porn movie, and in fact, Lagardère Lagardère himself, I think we can even hear him speaking in a moment. He says that, he's madly in love with this young woman for the past 6 months. He hopes that it will be a never-ending story, and why place limits on love. And
why indeed?
what's weird about this photo shoot, I mean, he keeps wiping his mouth every time he kisses her. So a lot of people are speculating that it's kind of a bit of a publicity stunt, that it's not altogether genuine.
Maybe he doesn't like the lip gloss.
I was thinking that could be another reason,
right?
A bit too much lip gloss. But in any case, the thing is, this lady, whose name is Jade Forêt, 21-year-old Belgian model, she gave an interview in 2009 to a Belgian newspaper talking about the love that she was sharing with Emile Benza, who is a Belgian footballer. And apparently she said in this interview that they were both delighted because it was started breathing new life into their careers. So one could speculate that maybe there's a little bit of a hidden reason behind this photo shoot. What's more, I think a couple of years back on Canal+, without even being asked the question, Arnaud Lagardère responded to a question saying he didn't sleep with Richard Gasquet, the tennis player. No one had asked him that.
Okay.
But he said, I never slept with Richard Gasquet.
James, we are going to have to leave you there, I'm afraid, because President Nicolas Sarkozy, French president, is now speaking live from the Eurozone summit at Brussels. We'll cross right over and listen to him now.
Not going to comment on the communiqué which you will be receiving, and which will be very specific. I would like to present the main political lines of this communiqué. First of all, we have decided, as I have often indicated, that we intend to support Greece as a member of the Euro and of the Eurozone. This is a determined commitment that we have made, and I would like to speak to the Greek people and to say that we're aware of the efforts we have asked them to make, and that all European countries have decided to be at their side. The Eurozone engenders solidarity, which means we cannot leave a member of the Eurozone on the side of the road. As soon as a member of the Eurozone undertakes a program of reforms and complies with its commitments. Secondly, the euro is part of the acquis communautaire, that which has been achieved by the EU, and it is indispensable, and it needs to be defended, and it needs to be strengthened. The support for Greece and support for the euro are part and parcel of the same thing. What is at stake is our historic responsibility in the face of Europe, which finds expression in the single currency. The failure of support for the euro is absolutely excluded. We are at a historic turning point in making this decision. What concrete decisions have been taken to express our support for Greece and our defense of the euro? Well, first of all, we have committed ourselves to establishing the beginnings of a European Monetary Fund. The existing European mechanism, which we created a few months ago, we have decided to reinforce it and at the same time to make it more flexible. Therefore, the EFSF, the European Financial Stability Facility, this European mechanism, will be able to intervene preventively to support a member state which is experiencing transitory difficulties. The premise of the future European Monetary Fund will be able to recapitalize, will be able to help a state to recapitalize its banking system if necessary. And the EFSF will be able to intervene on the secondary bond market when the European Central Bank indicates that this market is deficient. And in other words, a European mechanism will be triggered not only on the primary bond market, but also on the secondary market, where existing bonds, issued bonds, can be bought and sold. So this is the beginning of a European monetary fund which is being put in place. Basically, not only do we want to help Greece to overcome its current difficulties, but above all, we want to use the European crisis, to turn the European crisis into an opportunity to improve, to develop the Eurozone's European mechanism. So that has been the first series of decisions taken. The specialists that you all are probably well aware of the ground that we have covered between the moment we established the EFSF, the European Financial Stability Facility, and what we have just decided to allow it to do today. And we have covered a considerable ground. And these are decisions of structural importance. Second comment, I want to be as coherent as possible. You will be receiving all the details subsequently. I want you to have a clear understanding of the political dimension of our decisions. We have decided to take powerful measures to enhance the credibility and to enhance the sustainability of Greek debt. Now, this verbiage, this language, means that we want to give Greece a greater chance of overcoming its current difficulties by reducing its burden of debt. I don't want to give you too many figures, but to understand everything, GDP's Greece is 230 billion euros. That's the GDP of Greece. That represents 2% of the GDP of the Eurozone. And Greece's debt amounts to 350 billion euros, 160% of Greece's GDP. So we must give Greece, through reforms and savings, the means of reimbursing its debt. But at the same time, we had to lighten the burden of debt. So what strategy have we adopted? We have adopted the strategy, a sharp reduction in the interest rates of the European fund, the European bailout fund. So we will reduce the cost of debt. The European fund today, as of today, the European Fund will lend to Greece at the rate of between 3.5% to 4%. The current rates are 5.5%. This represents a saving for Greece, this reduction in interest rates, of 30 billion euros of savings for Greece over the next 10 years. Again, I don't want to give you too many figures, but I want everybody to remember, to recall the main lines of our discussions since yesterday afternoon. This will, these decisions regarding the interest rates applicable to Greece by the European Fund, this will make it possible to reduce Greece's debt by 12 basis points. So this is a massive decision. Third comment, we have had a big debate on the participation of the private sector in saving Greece. A complex debate from a technical point of view and sensitive from a political point of view. We have reached a compromise, which we came to yesterday evening with Chancellor Merkel, which we then submitted to President Van Rompuy last night, and which we have had adopted by the 17 member states today. The commitment of the private sector in favor of Greece will result in a reduction in interest rates that will be granted for future loans by the private sector to Greece. Interest rates that will range on average, I won't go into detail, about 4.5% over 30 years. This means that we are talking about public interest rates of between 3.5% and 4%, depending on changes in market conditions. These are interest rates applicable to private sector loans. On average, 4% over the first 5 years. The average will be 4.5% over the next 10 years. This is a reduction in Greece's debt of about 12 points of GDP. So a 12-point reduction by the decisions taken regarding the European Fund, and another 12 points due to the voluntary participation of the private sector. The private 135 billion euros worth of funding will be provided by the private sector over 30 years. So the first major decision. Greater flexibility, the beginnings of a European Monetary Fund, the sustainability, the support for the sustainability of Greece's debt. In our mind, I would like to underline something which is of fundamental importance. I'm trying to summarize everything. I'm not reading a text. What we're doing for Greece in terms of sustainability, we will do it. We will not do it for any other country in the Eurozone. I want you to be aware of the importance of this decision. In this business of sustainability, basically it's the issue of contagion which is at stake. We are saying quite clearly that Greece is a special case, that we are taking measures for Greece that we will not take for other countries. It's a political choice, a political decision, a very powerful political decision. Finally, we are fully convinced of the fact that Greece must continue to undertake its courageous reforms, undertake privatizations, but we will powerfully help Greece on the road to growth recovery, by a determined policy of allocating funds, of structural funds, to enhance Greece's competitiveness. Quite naturally, you can't ask a country to make savings, to make efforts to make savings, if we don't help the country to go back on the road to growth. It will not recover. It will not be able to solve its debt problem. A final comment, hoping that I haven't forgotten anything. There is the Greek issue, which we have, I think, now dealt with, and there is the issue of the future of the Eurozone. We discussed it at length last night with Chancellor Merkel, and we agreed that it was necessary to improve, to progress economic governance in the next few weeks in a very ambitious way and in a very determined way, or willful way. So this European Council is dedicated to finding the solutions we want to bring to the Greek crisis, which is, of course, the Eurozone's problem as well. But by the end of this summer, Chancellor Merkel and I will be submitting joint proposals regarding the economic governance of the Eurozone. And President Van Rompuy will be submitting proposals in October on the question of governance. Now, what does this all mean? As you know, France has been fighting for a long time for economic governance of the Eurozone. This government exists. The very expression used to be taboo. That has been solved. It is now part. The issue of economic governance is now accepted. It is clear that the governance means getting the heads of government and state, the 17 member states of the Eurozone. It's not 27. It's hard enough getting agreement among 17 member states. It's even more difficult to get agreement with 27 European countries, including members of the EU who are not members of the Eurozone. So we have progressed considerably in this regard. The issue of the leadership of the Eurogroup, the resources of the Eurogroup, the question of the value or importance of creating a European credit rating agency. These are questions on which France and Germany will be submitting proposals before the end of this month or before the end of August. And we hope that these proposals will indicate our vision of the future of the Eurozone. Our predecessors took historical decisions by giving Europe a single currency within the Eurozone, but they did not organize a European system of governance. We are doing that now. There was no European Monetary Fund. We are moving in that direction, and we will have to continue down this road. So our ambition, our aim, is to take the opportunity offered by the Greek crisis to make an enormous qualitative leap towards the establishment of better governance of the Eurozone. Ladies and gentlemen, I would have a lot of other things to say. Well, that is a summary of the major decisions that have been taken, and I would also like to add something. Chancellor Merkel and I have asked the president of the ECB, European Central Bank, to join us, is because we wanted to make sure that all European institutions deemed our plan, our draft plan, as credible. We want the world to understand that the Council of Heads of Government and State of the Eurozone, the European Central Bank, the European Commission, and the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde was present, have validated, support, and believe in the plan we have drawn up and for supporting Greece. I will take a few questions, but not too many. Good evening. I'm to your right, François Baudonnet of France 2. My question is as follows. A first question regarding, I think you mentioned it at the beginning of your presentation. You talked about a selective default of Greece. Could you confirm that there may be a selective default? No, I didn't use that vocabulary. You're using that vocabulary. It's your responsibility. That's not the terminology I use. I'm not the head of a credit rating agency. We have a problem. How can Greece reimburse its debt payback? For Greece to do that, we have decided to lengthen the maturities of the loans. And by lengthening, and this of course spreads out the effort, and we've decided to considerably cut the interest rates, and the private sector will support this by participating voluntarily in the lengthening of maturities and in reducing interest rates. Now, the credit rating agencies and observers can use the vocabulary they like, but that's not part of my vocabulary. Greece will pay back its debts. We will be making every effort to reduce interest rates. What we're going to do for Greece, we're not going to do for any other countries. Now, the credit rating agencies are free to react and to respond. The states, we will draw the lessons, conclusions in terms of guarantees provided by private banks making new loans, and the ECB will continue to guarantee through its action. So we are the whole world is watching us, and every word has its importance. So I'm not criticizing you for using that vocabulary, but allow me not to. So Greece will pay back its debt in the whole of its debt. Greece will pay all its debt back. The IMF deemed that the first bailout plan was sustainable. The markets decided otherwise. We therefore drew the necessary conclusions. We have decided to reduce the cost of Greece's reimbursement of its debt by taking measures to reduce the interest rates paid to the EFSF, which I have trouble saying, and nobody really knows exactly what those letters stand for. Anyway, it's the beginnings of a European Monetary Fund, and that is the answer to the question. Now, the public and private institutions now will decide on their reactions, and we will adapt. If there are any problems, the states will guarantee the ECBs, the European Central Banks, which will continue to buy back Greece's debt, and we will guarantee that the private banks that will not need to write off their Greek debts, because we will guarantee the new loans to Greece. So it's very precise what I'm saying. So you have said that what you are doing for Greece, you will not be doing it for any other country. Why not? No, I'm talking about interest rates. The European Monetary Fund, quite naturally, will work for other European countries as well. The negotiation on the interest rates was limited to the Greek issue. The question of preventing the contagion, we were very concerned about the risk of contagion of the Greek crisis in our discussions between France and Germany and the ECB and the 17 other member states of the Eurozone. It's not a simple issue. We had to strike a compromise between disadvantages, lots of disadvantages and lots of. So I think the road we have identified is very important in terms of the amounts of money concerned and the political decisions. BFM TV. Bank managers participated in your summit meeting. How would you describe the dialogue? Was it at your request that the chief executives of private banks were in attendance? And you've had a long negotiation today. Why? Was the length of your discussions due to divergences of views, differences of opinion? No. First of all, regarding the chief executives of private banks, including last night, yes, we talked with them for a very simple reason. The problem is the reimbursement of Greece's debt by Greece, and Greece owes monies to private banks as well as public sector banks, so it's quite normal that we should get private banks involved. So last night, through the Secretary General, Mr. Muscat, who works with Madame Merkel, we were in contact with the private banks, of course. And we also had discussions this afternoon on this subject. And this is a voluntary discussion. It wasn't. Nobody was forced to be there, and everybody had to make an effort. We are making an effort. The banks have to make an effort as well. And we wanted to make sure that everything was consistent. So we did have discussions with the private banks. Yes, the discussions went on for a long time. But you know how complex these issues are. We had a lot of complex equations to solve. Some say it's a technical debate, not a political debate. Yes, but you do need to have a political vision. Once you've defined your political vision, you have to translate that vision into figures. May I remind you of the figures. Greece, 160%. I mean, Greece's debt represents 160% of its GDP. And we cannot solve Greece's problem by making fine speeches. We had to, first of all, help the points of view of different stakeholders to get closer, to come together. Some countries, including Germany, wanted the private sector to participate more. The ECB an important institution, was not very keen on private sector intervention because of certain fears regarding the consequences. So we had to find a compromise. France worked very hard to find a compromise which was achieved last night. And we also had to take into account all the difficulties which the various players and stakeholders have. And it wasn't easy to get everybody to understand the process. So I spoke with Chancellor Merkel for 7 hours yesterday and with the president of the ECB. And today we had 10 hours of discussions. And given the scope of the problems to be solved, I think that time was absolutely necessary. And I would even say that it was quite short, although I would have preferred, obviously, would have preferred things to have been concluded more swiftly. So to specify certain things regarding the two other countries that are in difficulties, Portugal and Ireland. For those countries, we're going to reduce interest rates and extend the maturities of the loans issued by the European Monetary Fund, but we exclude the involvement of the private sector. That is what we absolutely exclude for Ireland and Portugal, the involvement of the private sector. Now, why are you going to reduce interest rates? Well, we can't apply the same rates and the same maturities. A country that has already made great efforts and which has made reforms may end up with higher rates. So the involvement of the private sector will be for Greece and for no other country. I wanted to clarify that point. Is it clear? I hope my explanations are clear. Mr. President, Pascal Verdeau of France 3, regarding the political vision and ambitious proposals regarding the governance for the end of August, which you will make for the end, are you prepared to enhance the monetary integration? Are you prepared to go further in terms of fiscal integration? Have you discussed fiscal integration with Mrs. Merkel? Are you prepared to make a qualitative leap and perhaps a decisive step forward for the Eurozone? Let's use credible language. The word convergence is important. It's a word we focused on a lot with Chancellor Merkel yesterday evening. Convergence, economic convergence, to prepare for economic integration. And we are perfectly aware of the fact that Germany and France must set an example in this regard. So that is the direction in which we are working. Convergence in order to enhance economic integration. This doesn't mean that each country has the same budget. Convergence at the service of competitiveness is absolutely unavoidable to prevent monetary tensions. We cannot keep a currency that is disconnected from economic policy. In order to achieve economic integration, we have to work on greater convergence, economic convergence, and France and Germany being the two most important economic powers of the Eurozone. That's why we've been working on this together, Chancellor Merkel and myself. Mr. President of the Temps newspaper, will there be a second bailout plan for Greece, and what amount? Well, this is what I've been talking about. Is there a specific figure? We are already talking about a second bailout plan. And I gave you some figures regarding the participation of the European Monetary Fund and on the participation of the private sector. You're quite right. It's a second. Well, let's not play on words. We are talking about a second bailout plan. Le Monde. I didn't understand what would be the contribution of the IMF and the EU member states to the bailout plan? Have you made progress in your negotiations with the private banks and the banks? And in terms of organization, will there be a meeting of finance ministers to solve the latest, to tie up the details? No, I don't think there will be a meeting of finance ministers during the coming weekend. We have looked at a lot of detail. As regards the private sector, it seems to me that the negotiations have progressed. We haven't looked at each loan issued by each bank, I think, but we've laid down the basic principles. As regards the cost of the plan, we hope that the Greek program will be successful and that Greece will be able to pay back its debts and get back to the path to growth. It's rather like the French plan for banks. You know that there was a controversy about the cost. In fact, the French bailout plan of the French banking actually raised enough money to pay back the French taxpayer with interest. And we think we are giving Greece every chance to be successful. So the first phase will take 3 years, and I will answer your question a bit further down the road. It's difficult to say how much it will cost, because everything will be guaranteed. I mean, the essence is that there will be guarantees.
Je crois que c'est 30 milliards. À 100, oui, parce qu'il y a aussi une autre question.
Another question. My associates will probably answer your more technical question. There is also the question of the recapitalization of Greek banks. I don't want to go into detail, but on the basis of the reactions of market institutions, certain events may occur which will lead the European Monetary Fund to participate in recapitalizing Greek banks. But I cannot anticipate. I can describe this would represent hundreds of billions of euros, but in the coming days we will adjust the details within the overall figure. Greek banks will have to continue to function, of course. So we don't exclude taking action to recapitalize Greek banks. And in the final communiqué, you will see that the EFSF will be able to participate in recapitalizing Greek banks if necessary. One last question. Beatrice Hadja of RTL. It's a very complex question, but I hope I've given you clear explanations and understandable, comprehensible explanations. May I ask you, 1 month ago, on the 24th of June, an agreement was reached, and now another agreement has been reached. Could you explain again, what makes you think that this evening's agreement will be more effective, more successful than the one that you came to a month ago? Well, a few weeks ago, the IMF said that Greece's debt is sustainable, and the markets, on the other hand, disagreed with the IMF. So why do I think the new plan will work? Well, because of the low interest rates. The low interest rates give Greece every chance of success. So it's as simple as that. Because basically, for the European Monetary Fund, it amounts to lending money to Greece at the price, at the cost at which it will finance itself. Thank you to all of you for your questions. Thank you.
Zone's plan of refinancing and working towards helping Greece out with its payment issues. Well, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has also been speaking. She's still addressing journalists there in Brussels, and we can cross over and listen to her now.
The French president has just said that there would be a European currency fund, and looking through your text, we can see that the EFSF will be able to act on the secondary market. Isn't that what the ECB did in the last 2 years? Could you explain this better to me? Hold on. This needs to be agreed unanimously in compliance with the rules of the EFSF. There needs to be this unanimity rule has been kept. Interventions in the secondary market is one of the 3 new possibilities granted to the EFSF. Let me tell you what these 3 possibilities are, in fact. So in the EFSF and subsequently the European Stability Mechanism will be able to so we will increase the flexibility of the EFSF, but this will always be linked to conditionality in terms of obligations to be met. We will then have a precautionary program which will give the possibility to recapitalize financial institutions, so when banks need to be recapitalized, such a possibility has been created. And then, as for countries that are not part of the program, to avoid contagion, and then under more severe conditions, interventions in the secondary market is possible. The ECB is the institution that will give the signal. It needs to be a unanimous decision, and there needs to be an extraordinary market condition. It needs to be something required to ensure the stability of the financial markets, and this is to prevent contagion. These decisions need to be implemented as fast as possible, but of course they need to be worked upon technically with respect to every aspect. So we've done 2 things today. On the one hand, naturally, we have agreed on this entire program. First of all, a voluntary contribution by private sector lenders, and at the same time, to ensure Europe as a whole stability, we have introduced new instruments to ensure that we can prevent any risk of contagion. That's what we worked upon. And then, of course, we worked on what closer political cooperation will require. Chancellor, have I understood you well with respect to the contribution of private sector lenders to the Greek bailout packages? So we're talking about rollover, debt swapping, and could you confirm that and give us some figures? Well, private sector lenders, banks, well, you know what the IMF has said about that. You will be able to look at that in depth. There's first of all a bond exchange, a 30-year instrument, a rollover, a discount bond exchange, with a 30-year maturity, and this will be done through an insurance mechanism, a 50-year bond. But some of you are specialists. You can look into that yourselves afterwards. But the overall effect can be summed up by the fact that we have
Leistungen aus dem EFSF notwendig sind,
since we will
37 Milliarden für die
37 billion euros
2014.
Until 2014. That has been agreed upon as our contribution. Then there will come the buyback program. So this of about 12 billion euros, that takes us up to 50 billion euros.